Air travel is freedom embodied, a chance to slip the bonds of everyday routine and emerge somewhere entirely new after only a few hours in a pressurized metal tube. Yet that same liberating ritual can be wrecked in seconds if identification documents do not meet the latest security standards. The Transportation Security Administration has spent years tightening its regulations, and the next sweeping adjustment arrives in June 2025. Because the stakes include missed departures, forfeited tickets, and ruined vacations, it pays to master every nuance of the updated passport and ID landscape long before stepping into the airport's fluorescent glow. What follows is a comprehensive guide rooted in the TSA's own rulebook, designed to keep travelers out of bureaucratic quicksand and confidently striding toward the gate. For most domestic passengers, the driver's license has long served as the golden key to the airport kingdom. But that familiarity is about to expire. The Real ID Act, first passed in 2005 and delayed repeatedly, finally becomes non-negotiable in June 2025. On that morning, a regular state license without the Real ID symbol will be as useless as an expired coupon. Travelers who arrive at the checkpoint clutching an outdated license will be turned away unless they present an alternate, compliant document. Recognizing a Real ID license is straightforward. Most states imprint a small gold star in the upper corner. California opts for a bear, while a handful use a tiny American flag. Absence of these icons means a last-minute scramble, and the time for that scramble is vanishing quickly. Securing a Real ID requires an in-person appointment at the Department of Motor Vehicles, and the documentation checklist is strict. A valid passport or birth certificate proves citizenship, a social security card or W-2 verifies identity, and 2 proofs of current address, often recent utility bills or bank statements, tie the applicant to a physical residence. Many states allow documents to be uploaded online before the appointment, shaving minutes off the counter interaction, yet the building itself cannot be skipped. Historically, DMV lines lengthen dramatically in the months preceding any sweeping. Deadline. The agency expects nearly 100 million Americans will still be non-compliant as autumn 2024 slides into winter. Waiting until spring means squeezing into a queue that snakes around the block and surrenders hours that could have been invested elsewhere. Securing an appointment during the cooler months or even midweek mornings can transform the ordeal from intolerable to merely inconvenient. Even with a looming deadline, panic is unnecessary because Real ID is not the only acceptable document. A valid US passport book or the less expensive passport card remains a universal pass through domestic screening. Frequent international. Travelers may already hold global entry or Nexus cards, both of which TSA gladly accepts. Permanent residents can rely on their green cards, members of the armed forces have military IDs, and residents of Michigan, New York, and Washington possess enhanced driver's licenses that already satisfy federal criteria. These alternatives provide redundancy. Storing a passport card in a carry-on or a secure digital copy in an encrypted phone vault can neutralize the anxiety of a forgotten wallet. That redundancy becomes invaluable when security lines stretch and time evaporates. Silicon Valley's vision of paperless credentials is materializing in pilot programs scattered across the country. Mobile driver's licenses stored in encrypted phone wallets are now recognized at certain checkpoints in California, Colorado, Utah, and Maryland. The technology relies on Cat2 scanners that can authenticate a QR code without the traveler surrendering the phone. Confidence in the system remains cautious. Only a minority of airports have installed the required hardware, and nothing guarantees the return airport on a round trip will be equally prepared. Relying solely on a digital license risks an unpleasant revelation at the start or the end of a journey. For now, mobile IDs should supplement, not replace, physical documents until nationwide adoption is complete. Nothing feels more secure than clutching a passport whose expiration date lies comfortably in the future. Yet many destinations judge that comfort insufficient. More than 100 countries, spanning Europe's Schengen zone, large swaths of Asia, and swathes of South America, enforce the 6-month validity rule. Airline gate agents act as the first line of defense for foreign immigration authorities, and they will bar boarding if a traveler fails the test. The result is an expensive lesson learned within sight of the aircraft door. Checking the US State Department's country information pages before buying a ticket eliminates nasty surprises, and setting calendar reminders 9 months before. Expiration keeps renewal safely ahead of travel. A passport that never creeps inside that 6-month window is a passport that never blocks an adventure. The pandemic era revealed how fragile the passport processing pipeline can become. Routine turnaround times ballooned to 10 or even 12 weeks, while expedited service, which commands an additional fee, still hovered between 6 and 8 weeks. Those numbers have improved, yet surges around summer vacations and winter holidays regularly create backlogs. The State Department's online renewal portal offers salvation for travelers whose previous passport was issued after age 16, within the last 15 years, and whose name remains unchanged. Completing the digital application from a couch takes 15 minutes and avoids the need for a physical acceptance facility. Adding the expedited option trims several weeks, but when departure lurks inside a fortnight, only a face-to-face agency appointment can deliver a new book in time. Such emergency slots vanish almost as soon as they appear, refreshing at midnight and rewarding insomniacs with persistence. In short, treating passport upkeep like dental hygiene, maintained routinely, rather than rescued urgently, spares nerves and bank accounts. Of all the airport shortcuts available to the public, TSA PreCheck arguably delivers the highest return on investment. Membership lasts 5 years and costs less than a checked bag fee on many airlines. Yet possession of that membership is meaningless if the known traveler number never finds its way into an airline reservation. Countless passengers arrive at the checkpoint, point to a PreCheck logo on the boarding pass, and discover they were never actually cleared because the reservation lacks the matching number. Completing the online application, visiting an enrollment center, and clearing the background check are only half the journey. Religiously entering the known traveler number every time a ticket is booked ensures the privileges materialize. Once active, the program allows shoes, belts, and jackets to stay on, laptops and toiletries to remain packed, and pockets to stay full. Average screening time plummets to 5 minutes, and frustration melts accordingly. For those craving an even swifter glide past humanity, Clear steps in with biometric verification that eliminates the document check entirely. Fingerprints or facial scans at kiosks confirm identity before a courier escorts the traveler to the front of the scanner queue. Clear does not replace PreCheck, it complements it. Together, they form a 2-layer shield against security snarls. But neither has power over cancelled flights, weather-induced gridlock, or malfunctioning baggage belts. They are tools, not talismans, and success still demands prudence elsewhere in the itinerary. Adults often assume that if a license overhaul affects them, it must surely complicate matters for children. Domestically, the opposite is true. Minors under 18 who travel with an adult companion require no identification at all inside the United States. That leniency evaporates the moment an international border enters the equation. Infants require their own passports, toddlers need theirs renewed every 5 years, and older minors follow the standard 10-year cycle. Officials take documentation involving children extremely seriously to deter abduction and trafficking. When only one parent accompanies a child, border authorities strongly recommend carrying a notarized letter of consent from the absent parent and any relevant custody papers. Failing to produce these documents can lengthen screening immeasurably or terminate the trip outright. Because minors cannot advocate for themselves, meticulous parental preparation is the only safeguard against a ruined family reunion or vacation. Adults often assume that if a license overhaul affects them, it must surely complicate matters for children. Domestically, the opposite is true. Minors under 18 who travel with an adult companion require no identification at all inside the United States. That leniency evaporates the moment an international border enters the equation. Infants require their own passports, toddlers need theirs renewed every 5 years, and older minors follow the standard 10-year cycle. Officials take documentation involving children extremely seriously to deter abduction and trafficking. When only one parent accompanies a child, border authorities strongly recommend carrying a notarized letter of consent from the absent parent and any relevant custody papers. Failing to produce these documents can lengthen screening immeasurably or terminate the trip outright. Because minors cannot advocate for themselves, Meticulous parental preparation is the only safeguard against a ruined family reunion or vacation. The 311 guideline has survived for nearly 2 decades. Each liquid, gel, or aerosol must not exceed 3.4 ounces. All containers must fit into a single quart-sized zip-top bag, and every passenger receives 1 bag. Despite that longevity, confiscated. Sunscreen, lotion, and beverage bottles remain the leading cause of secondary inspections. The rule applies equally to luxury moisturizer and discount shampoo. Security officers care about volume, not brand equity. Medications and baby formula are exceptions, yet they must be declared and available for testing. Frozen liquids enjoy a loophole. Solid blocks pass muster, but they must remain rock-hard at inspection. To avoid last-second digging, place the quart bag in an outer pocket of carry-on luggage before leaving home. Confrontations regarding sentimental or expensive toiletries delay everyone and seldom end in favor of the traveler. Accept the inevitability of the trash bin or relocate full-size. Bottles to checked baggage. Calculating when to leave for the airport resembles solving for a variable in an ever-shifting equation where traffic density, parking availability, airline staffing, and gate location each add their own coefficients. The TSA recommendation of 2 hours for domestic flights and 3 for international ones is conservative, but still valuable, because it builds slack into a system notorious for surprise delays. Travelers wielding carry-ons and pre-check credentials routinely trim that window, yet doing so resembles playing blackjack against a deck stacked by construction detours and weather delays. Airlines frequently close bag drop 40 minutes before departure and lock the jet bridge 20 minutes ahead of takeoff. Missing those cutoffs negates even the fastest dash through security. The journey to the gate thus begins long before the boarding pass prints. It starts with realistic traffic estimates, contingency-laden parking plans, and an appreciation that the universe rarely conspires to make a tight schedule looser. The labyrinth of modern aviation security thrives on deadlines, acronyms, and fine print. Ignorance of that ecosystem can transform a long-anticipated escape into a demoralizing retreat back to the curb. Real ID enforcement, passport validity, quirks, biometric fast lanes, and century-old liquid guidelines all coexist under the vaulted ceilings of every terminal, and each can torpedo a trip if neglected. Mastery comes from early action, scheduling DMV appointments months in advance, scanning passports for approaching 6-month windows, enrolling in trusted traveler programs before peak season, and packing with surgical precision. When those measures align, the airport becomes less an obstacle course and more a well-choreographed prelude to adventure. Instead of pleading with agents or discarding belongings under duress, the prepared traveler strolls through archways, collecting stamps and memories instead of headaches. June 2025 is closer than it seems. Begin the checklist today, and the next flight will lift off with you smiling confidently in seat A window, rather than watching from behind a pane of reinforced glass.